Hi, I'm Dr. Gwen. I'm a clinical psychologist who's been empowering disabled individuals, their families, and their support systems for over 20 years. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel, where I curate tools, share mindsets, and promote habits to help neurodiverse individuals thrive. Also, hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a thing. In this video, I talked to Arolyn Burns, a licensed marriage and family therapist who's a specialist in trauma, anxiety, and fears. In our fun and energetic conversation, we debunk myths and talk about the suppressing role that fear and trauma play in living our best lives. We also uncover Arolyn's approach to the treatment of neurodiverse individuals, which is individualized, curious, and creative. I've always been empowered by Arolyn's candid and vibrant style, and she always leaves me with that feeling that anything is possible. I wonder if you'll feel the same way after listening to our interview. Enjoy. Hi, Arolyn. Welcome.
Hi, Gwen. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for being here. This is a topic, your expertise is a topic that I really struggle with when it comes to supporting systems and families, because there's a lot of misunderstanding. So I can't wait for us to get into what trauma is, how fear plays a role in our psychology, and how we behave. So I can't wait to dive in. But maybe before we do that, can you tell us about yourself?
Oh boy. Okay. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor. I'm certified in EMDR. I'm certified in hypnotherapy, and I've been doing it for about 25 years.
Yep. Yep. This is why. This is why. Done. Wrap. It's a wrap. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Arolyn, this is exactly why you and I, are colleagues, but I send people to you that are really stuck, and paralyzed by trauma. So maybe we can even go there, which is, what is trauma?
Well, trauma, I've never said the definition. Let me think. When I experience trauma, and when I think of clients that experience trauma, it's any situation that triggers a negative reaction internally. So it could be something normal for one person, and another person's prior experiences or the way their brain's wired, they can take it totally different, and their experience of it is traumatic. So it could be simply a word used from the past can trigger someone, and their traumatic experience could be an internal reaction of anxiety, blood racing, lungs getting tightened, or sometimes, taking the hyperventilating breaths, flooding in their brain because the brain's not getting enough oxygen. So as we all know, a trauma experience is usually, they were held at gunpoint, or, a rape, or PTSD type symptoms from war or something else. But a trauma can be anything that the individual experiences that way. And one thing I want to make note of is, just because Jane Doe says, oh, it's no big deal, doesn't mean that Jane Ray won't experience it as a big deal, right? So by understanding that each individual has a different way the brain is wired, I'm going to go to a little aside. I read a study on twins, where they were studying twins that were identical, that grew up in the same households, that basically had the same life experiences, same parenting, same upbringing, and yet their experience with life was completely different. One was joyful, one was not. One was, really anxious and needed a lot more attention. The other one was carefree. Well, they all had the same experience in their world, right? But internally, the way they were wired and the way their brain connected things, the way the neurotransmitters put things together in their brain was different. And so their experiences from the first firing being different became different connections. And the different connections wired them different all the way, so that they were completely different and unique people. I've even seen conjoined twins that have had to survive their lives together, but their heads are different. They fight. They're totally different people, but with the same body, right? So our brain, even though we can have exactly the same life experiences, we can experience it very differently. And the trauma experience can be stifling, where they're not able to communicate with others. They're not able to express themselves well. They can go into shock or fear or isolation or depression or extreme anxiety. There's so many things, as you know, that can be a reaction to what they experience as trauma.
Yeah, and really highlighting this idea that we have to seek to understand why someone is behaving in the way they do. You know, going all the way back to say, what is your narrative and how are you living in this world, you know? And that is so complex, especially for individuals who are neurodiverse, who encode the world in a different way, who see the world in a different way, that you know, and I love that you really talked about this idea, and I don't know where I learned this from, you can just correct me if I'm wrong, but this idea of like big T and little t traumas, you know, like these big T, those things that you think about, those catastrophic events, you know, versus the little t, which, you know, are still traumatic, but it could be anything. I mean, I think about my clients who might never have had good success or satisfaction, like on a playground, for example. And it's just, you know, repeated experiences of negative interactions, right? That really kind of culminate into something that looks like a traumatic response, you know?
Yeah.
And that idea of just being flooded, like internally, you know, that idea of I'm not digesting this. Like I'm not getting this, you know, and it's flooding me here. So yeah. And that, you know, Arolyn, this is another myth that I run into all the time when I'm on teams. And that is that trauma, individuals with neurodiversity or intellectual disabilities or developmental disabilities don't experience trauma.
What?
And yeah, right.
I think they might experience more than most people.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, coming from from you, who's an expert on this, which is this happens, you know, for individuals who have different brain functioning, different brain profiles. So I'm glad we clarified that myth. I just wanted to make sure. You know, Arolyn, how do you see, because fear obviously gets woven into trauma, and maybe we can talk about what fear is. Maybe you can go into how fear and trauma are woven together.
Well, I think we've all experienced fear. It's that experience of, I don't know what's happening and I don't know how to cope in this situation. And because I don't know that, I'm going to respond with either fight, flight, or freeze. And a lot of people are aware of what their response mechanism is, but other people aren't. You know, I practice hypnotherapy, and that's one of my intro questions is, do you fight, flight, or freeze? And they'll look at me and they're like, I don't know. Do I run or do I freeze? And it's kind of like, some people are like, well, it's a combination, or it depends on the circumstance. And fear can be different types of fear, right? So if I feel like I have power and I'm fearful, then I'm going to fight. But if I feel like I don't have power, or the person that I'm feeling the fear from is more powerful, or the situation is so astronomical, it might be I'm trying to think the word. What is it? Like an earthquake or a natural disaster. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm completely out of control. COVID, for example, right?
Yeah.
I think most of us freaked out at least the first week, right? I know for me, I think I froze. I'm normally a fighter, but I stayed on my couch and I just ate junk food and watched stupid movies. I will not lie. I did watch a little bit of Tiger King, but I got over that quick. But it was something where all these people in the world, I mean, there was nobody to go turn to, right? So we were all in this situation of, right? Freeze. What do I do? Nobody knew what to do. And that's a fear reaction. The opposite would be fight. And a lot of stereotypical macho personality. They've been trained. That's what you do. You work out all day and now you go fight to kill whatever it is that gets in your way. And unfortunately, that's where we beget a lot of domestic violence, because as a child, we learned violence was an appropriate response to something. Men and women both respond in a fight modality when they don't have that safety. And then the other would be to run. And how many of us, I was just talking to a girlfriend yesterday and she goes, yeah, my boyfriend knows that he runs away when things get hard. I'm like, okay. At least he knows that, right? And so now she's been able over the years to call him out on it and say, are you running now? Do you need some space? Can we schedule a time to talk, right? So there's different ways to respond that are innately in us, that are also trained from our environment. So it's nature versus nurture. Personally, I believe it's both, right? And as we realize that certain responses work for us, it reinforces it. We talked about the neurotransmitters earlier. Oh, that worked. So now let's make that a thicker connection, right? And unfortunately, when it's a negative response that doesn't work in every situation, people are manifesting in that fear response, even in an inappropriate fear situation.
Yeah. Yeah. So this kind of application of taking that kind of very reflexive, animalistic kind of response of, I'm in danger, my life is in danger, to, I have a stressor, or I have something that's going on that's not life-threatening, but it is distressing. It is dysregulating me. So what do I do? And I love that question that you said, are you a fight, flight, or freezer? Which is like this very formal question of like introspection, self-reflection. How do you handle distress? Like, what do you do in that moment? And I think that's like working with individuals that have neurodiversity, that formality is so helpful because they're not, I feel like sometimes I need to help my clients anyway, formally look inside, formally reflect. It's not a natural thing for them per se. And the more that we can drive that self-awareness, then we have this understanding of how we can meet our reflexes or our natural inclination to, to do something.
Yeah.
So, Arolyn, how do you, when you see trauma, so now that we've established that trauma and fear, that does happen for individuals who have neurodiversity, sometimes more so than we think, and maybe more so than individuals that may not have any disabilities. How do you approach treatment or support? Because I know that you use, there's a lot of different tools that you use, but do you find that you have to approach it in a different way? Treatment?
I think I approach it differently for every individual, no matter neurodiverse, neurotypical, everybody's unique, right? So for me, I take the first couple of sessions of just really asking them about themselves. What do let's start with, building rapport, of course, but what do you think I need to know about you to help you? Where do we need to start? Great
question.
And oftentimes they'll start out with what's going on presently. And I'm not really one to ask about the past myself. It generally comes up, right? And it was interesting because I had a new client just this week and they were sharing with me about, this is what's going on in my life now. And then it just automatically kind of like cycled back to, oh yeah. And then when I was a kid, and then, oh yeah. And and they kind of went there organically. And I love that. Whenever I'm working with clients, I believe that what is present in their mind is what I want to work on, because that's where we're going to get the deepest connection and the ability to heal that, whatever that situation is, that trauma, that fear, that anxiety, that whatever it is. So I tell them, I go every week, I do have a treatment plan that we're following. I know your goals. I know where we're going. But if you ever, walk in the room, you want to talk about what's going on right now, just tell me, and we're going to put that aside because we can get back to that. We know what that is. We know it's coming up. And it was so cool because this week I had a situation with a client I've been working with for about a year. And we had plans to do a hypno recording, and I was all ready to do it. And I'm like, okay, that's why you're in person today. And we've got everything set up. And she goes, I don't want to talk about that right now. And she just, for the first time in about a year, was safe enough to trust me to cry in front of me. Mm. And it was such like, it was such a meaningful and powerful experience, even for me, to see her finally feel safe enough to break down those walls that she had kept up for her entire life. She's a very emotional person, but she's been strong for so long that it was just really challenging for her. And I know she cries on her own, and I know she, you know, cuddles her cat and cries and does all that. But this was the first time I actually got to be present, and I had the honor of being in that moment with her. And for me, it was a huge transition to our relationship. And so when I see her next week, I'm going to ask her how that was for her. Because I'm sure she left going, oh crap, you know, I was vulnerable. Now, what's she going to think? Because that's what we do when we're not used to being vulnerable. We leave the situation, and sometimes we feel like maybe we overshared, or, you know, in a typical situation with just a regular person, not our therapist, but even that transfers into the room. So it's to allow our clients to be safe and to experience that trauma again in our presence is so, I mean, it's such a gift when they do. Yeah. And it allows them to experience the healing of being held in a safe environment. And I'm so grateful I get to do what I mean, I'm so honored that I get to do this. I love seeing people get healed. It's powerful.
I couldn't agree more. I think therapy is a very unique career and job, unlike any other, because we have the privilege of walking on these journeys with our clients, you know, and that therapy, much like I think learning, because in therapy, we hope that there's learning, right? And we hope that there's you know, learning of yourself, learning of new skills, learning of that. In order for that to happen, safety must be present. And so no matter, for any individual with or without a disability, safety is necessary. And, you know, when I think about my clients who don't understand that feeling or that felt sense, you really have to help them get there little by little, you know, and that this is not a quick endeavor, especially the more decades you put into just putting your head down and working really hard and pushing your feelings aside, you know? And so that's the same for anyone in this kind of process. So I love that. But, you know, this idea of having a safe place in which to reprocess trauma, reprocess these hurtful, fearful events in our life, to maybe reshape our narrative, you know, is so great. You know, Arolyn, do you see a difference between fear and anxiety? Because I think a lot of times, you know, these words get interchanged. Like, oh, I'm really anxious. I'm really nervous. I'm really fearful.
Yeah.
Do you see differences or nuances in those words, or do you think it's okay to call them all the same thing?
I think anxiety probably flavors all of them. But you can have anxiety without fear. You can have nervousness. I still think that could be, I believe that includes anxiety, but it's a different type of experience than fear, right? Nervous is maybe more the wringing of the hands of, I've got an interview coming up, as opposed to fear is more the way the brain connects it. The fear is it's life or death, like you mentioned earlier. It's more, even if it's not, you know, people can experience fear entering a room full of people where they even know everybody in that room. And then they have to stand up and speak. And we know that speaking in public is one of the top, if not number one, fears that people have. And simply having everyone you know there But the minute it's your responsibility to say something addressing them, that can trigger that fear of like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Versus when we're talking, yeah, I was nervous. I was a little, my hands are a little cold and clammy right now, because this is putting myself out there, right? But I don't have that same fear of my body responding that way. But the anxiety is still there. It might be different levels of the anxiety. Some people get totally like, they freeze when they get that anxiety, right? Where they're just like, I can't put two words together. I can't think straight. I call it a whiteout, where it's like, it just feels like there's snow blocking your view. You just can't go there. And then that's one of the things that I love working with clients on, because fears and phobias, as you know, is one of my specialties. And honestly, in like about 5 sessions with my hypnotherapy program, I can help them fly again. I can help them drive again. I can help them speak in public. And it's so freeing. And it's only 5 sessions, as long as there's not a severe trauma that's affiliated with it, right? So I've had great opportunities. I remember one client, this was just so cool to me, because she loved to surf, but she hated to fly, and she had kids. So she was like, I'm not going to let my kids see this, because I don't want them to learn this fear. So she worked with me before she flew with her kids across the country. And she came back and she said, Arolyn, I was surfing the turbulence. It was so cool, because we made an association that just like the waves, that's what turbulence is. Yeah. And it was life-changing, because now she can travel anywhere. And so it's so fun for me, because I love to travel, to know that I'm giving people the freedom to do what they're passionate about without that fear that cripples them, that keeps them from living. We're here on Earth for a very short period of time, right? So let's experience all it has to offer. Let's jump out of the plane. Let's, dive with the sharks. I mean, that's me. And I used to be afraid of heights. And then I jumped at, I was kind of pushed, but I got out of the plane, right? I didn't want to go. But once you're out, right? And it felt like flying. And I said, oh my gosh, I feel like Superman. You do not feel like you're dropping. Thank God the guy was on my back, because he pulled the cord. I couldn't find it. They chained me. It was down here. So yes, but it's by attacking our fears, by going and experiencing those things, it allows us to realize they're not that dangerous. They're not that scary. We can survive it, even jumping out of a plane. And that's the mindset that helps, right? And so working with neurodiverse clients, so many that I've experienced have some kind of fear that makes them stay kind of in this type of pattern, this almost immobilizing experience. And all I want to do is help them say, okay, let me see, let me try. If you want me to be there and I'll try it with you, no problem. I have a client next week. She's been scared to go to the beach by herself. I said, okay, our next session, let's go to the beach. We're going to the beach. Because then you can stay after I leave. And you're there by yourself, but I got you there, right? And it's not, once we get there, so often it's not hard anymore. But it's the unknown is so paralyzing sometimes. And so let's face the unknown. Let's expose, I'm not one who does exposure therapy, unless you think it's hypnotherapy is exposure therapy, because I do have them visualized, but there is something to be said for it, right? And somebody who's been dumped in a vat of snakes isn't going to be scared of snakes anymore.
Yeah, sure.
So I just do that virtually and not for real.
Right. Through visualization is what you're saying. Like through, right. And then that is its own form of exposure, Arolyn. It's like this kind of reframing and like this idea of, okay, I love surfing, but I don't like flying. And the way you associated it or reframed it, but you know how to surf waves. Like you're going to surf this, And so you just see how freeing this is, because fear, what I see fear do for my clients is it makes their world really, really small.
Yeah.
I can't So all of a sudden, like I have all these negative experiences, out in the world. And then all of a sudden I'm stuck at my house and I don't want to leave,
Yeah.
and now my hope of helping them be as autonomous or independent as possible as adults, we're really, really challenged with these huge whiteouts, these,
Yep.
these
Yep.
shutdowns. And it literally is taking baby steps out of the door. The other piece too that I find that can be missing in a lot of different types of therapies is forgetting to empower clients with coping skills. So when I am faced with that fight, flight, freeze response, that I actually can do things to get front brain again, to get out of that fear-based response, to build skills. And I know you do that because we're colleagues, and I know your work. But how much skills make a difference for a client, because then they have skills with them, whether it's the way I think about something or grounding or the way, you do something that is really cool. And I know we weren't necessarily planning on talking about this, but I'm going to bring it up because you've brought up hypnotherapy, which is something really cool that you did with one of my clients who is a 30-some-year-old male and has intellectual disabilities. And so I think a lot of times when this happens, people are like, oh, they just write it off. Like, oh yeah. Well, why are you're not fearful? You can't even think about it. And it's like, no. Like, this person is always talking about being worried in the world. There is something here. And what was so cool is you met with him a few times. You developed this really lovely recording that was very specific to his life, his events. I think you guys chose sounds and different things. And he listened to this every night before going to bed. And it was awesome because it was just something that really, really helped him, one, get to sleep. But he created this with you. And it was very, very individualized to him. And so, just by going through all that, you guys had visualized it and talked about different things. It was so lovely. So, that, and I think sometimes people don't really know what hypnotherapy, there's myths or things around hypnotherapy, but have you seen hypnotherapy in the way you do it? It's very specific, as an effective tool for individuals who are neurodiverse. I've seen it, but have you seen it more globally?
It's so cool because, like I said before, everybody's a unique individual, right? And so when I do hypnotherapy, I've taken the program that I was trained under, which is HMI, the only accredited school. But then since I've been doing it so long, and because I am a licensed therapist, I integrated all of my psychological trainings and my own understanding, because I personally deal with anxiety myself. So I've challenged myself and I've worked on my own things. And so I kind of get to integrate, oh, well, that worked for me. Let's see if it works for you, And then I'm one of those persons who's, constantly wanting to learn and stretch and grow. So I'll say, well, I don't know if that'll work for that, but if you're willing to try, I'll try it, So that's expanded it. So when I'm working with my neurodiverse clients, they're literally telling me what their inner dialogue is. And then I say, well, what do you want it to be? How do you want to talk to yourself? And if they need some coaching along the way, if they need some support, I say, well, who has influenced you? Who has been a positive influence in your life? It could be books, it could be the Bible, it could be poetry, it could be music, it could be a person, it could be a TV show. I don't care. It's what's affected them in a positive way. I actually, back in 1999, before we had these giant computers, I wrote a book of questions. And it just, when I moved offices, I found it. And I brought it on a trip just 2 weeks ago. I went away with the girls to Sonoma. And so we read some of the questions together. And it was so fun that I'm actually going to tweak it and make it more modern and publish it like a coffee table book. But it's going to have pictures, but it asks the deep questions. So that what would happen if I threw a birthday party for you? Well, I've had one person, and I've dated somebody who is neurodiverse, and flipped out on me, right? Just it was a question. It was in a book. We're, lying here comfortably. What the heck? But the reaction was so astronomical compared to this simple question that extreme anger, anybody who knows me wouldn't, ask me that, versus the gals, the same question. They were like, well, that's really not my thing. So don't. And then me, I'm like, oh yeah, please, I'd love that. Right?
Yeah.
So that's why I wrote that book back in 99 when I was still in grad school. I think maybe in my 20s, sometime back then. And I was already thinking that way. Mm-hmm. So my brain has always been that questioning kind of thing. So when I bring that into the room with my clients and they're telling me their experiences, they're in a safe place where they don't have to have that strong reaction that they have with loved ones or peers, or they know they're in a safe environment. So I can say, well, what would happen if somebody threw a birthday party for you? Mm-hmm. And they're not in the, oh my God, are you going to do that? Right? Situation. They're in the situation of like, yeah, I don't, and they might freeze and they might have that lack of speech, but I'm there sitting with them, understanding and holding that so that they're able to find their words. We use sounds in my office. I have light therapy. I have aromatherapy. Like I integrate all 5 senses. And you had mentioned being grounded without using the word. I actually give clients a rock and I have them describe the rock to me. Explain what this rock was like. Tell me everything you can about this rock. If you want, taste it. It's clean. Right now during COVID, nobody's licking it. In the past, I've had people do that, right? And that then I say, okay, so while you were looking at that rock, were you thinking about the birthday party? Were you thinking about any of those other things? No. You were thinking specifically about what the thing I told you to focus on was. Mm-hmm. So I want you to keep this rock. You're grounded when you think about the rock. And whenever you start to get spinning out, have it in your pocket, feel for that dent that you know where it is. See if you can feel that vein in the rock. Remember the color of it. If you need to take it out of your pocket, take it out of your pocket. Look at it. Get grounded. Mm-hmm. And so that's an opportunity. Then I give it to him and I say, you rock.
Of course you would, Arolyn. Of course you would. Now that, I it's so funny as you're describing it, I was like, oh, I already feel grounded myself just talking about it.
Yeah.
What I love though, is this idea about this mindset, I think, which this is a good segue because I really want us to get into some mindsets about the way that we need to address fear in our life, or the way that we need to address trauma in our life. But this idea of staying curious is very different than judging, right?
Yes.
Being curious is like throwing something at the wall, see if it sticks. If it doesn't, maybe you throw it a couple more times. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
But really, it's like if you're really going to meet the person, the client, your child, whoever it is, where they are, we really need to stay curious because they're the ones that get to tell us if it works for them or not. Or they're the ones that get to say, this is not working. And, obviously there are other things like resistance that even tell us something about we're not safe yet. We're not safe to even explore if this works or not. But I love this idea for you, which is you've got all these tools. And I love that. The other idea the other thing you said that I love is so many times it's asking the right questions. Asking the right questions is so important because it really helps direct or focus someone's mind in a way. And I just love that how you just differentiated this thing of, when you're in a safe place, you don't have to have that big reaction. You don't have to protect yourself. This is about understanding yourself. So we don't, right? Clients, a lot of my clients, when you asked a question about the birthday party, I just thought of so many of my clients who were like, do not sing happy birthday. Do not surprise me. Anyway. But it was just so funny. So I love this. Like, be curious, try different things. So many times I think we're really bad at predicting what is actually going to work. Just try it. right? Try it, but you got to be in a safe space to do it. So
Mhm.
I love that. I love that. Well, I mean,
Well, and real
Arolyn,
quick,
yeah, good. Yeah.
along those lines, the safe space, I also tell clients from the get-go, from the minute they start seeing me, I say, if I ever suggest something and you're like, ew, no, that's not for me, tell me. I've got a big bag of tricks.
Yeah.
So say, yeah, that's not my thing. I'm fine with that. And giving them that freedom, I think also gives that safe space. And I know you do that too, because it's one of those things when we're especially working with young people, you know, it's like young people are like, I want to be in control because there's so many areas they're not in control. So when we give them that freedom, you know, as parents, you know, we tell them, you know, when you're working with a teenager, give them options for their discipline, right? Let them pick, let them have some freedom. So so I think having that freedom to say, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to do that now, or this is stupid. I know it's stupid, but can you humor me?
Yeah. I mean, like, just give me a chance, you know, or whatever. But yeah, no, choices and permission. Even like I'm giving you permission to not agree with something or to say something. And that's like the heart of advocacy, you know, and this is where I actually also see fear, anxiety shut my clients down, which is they're worried about what could happen if they say something, you know. So when I'm trying to figure out how to help someone advocate, because I think as an adult with a disability, advocacy is really critical and crucial. And you know, I have to figure out, one, do you know where you need, why you need, like the areas that you need support? Two, do you know how to ask for that support? And then three, are you worried about asking for support? Right? So this is just another place in which, you know, fear can really shut down or close someone's world off. And so I love that you're like, I want you to travel. Like, in other words, I want you to live a full life, no matter who you are, no matter what cognitive profile you have, it doesn't matter. Like, live a full life. And that's possible for everybody. So I love that. Arolyn, if there was any kind of mindset or takeaway that you could kind of empower people with, just to like remember the impact of fear or trauma on someone's life, like what would that be?
I don't know that I'm understanding the question.
Yeah, no. Like this kind of idea, like, for example, you know, you have to be safe in order to explore.
Yeah.
You know, so anything like, you know, any kind of little
Like a
mindset that
snippet.
you keep, for yourself or that you share with your clients that really helps them kind of get over the hump or get over, be able to take calculated risks, you know? Is there anything that you say to them that really can go, where they go, yeah, I got it.
Everybody's different. Let me think, but I think that my passion, my goal is, if there's something you want to do, I want to help you do it. And some people don't want to travel. Some people just want to get out their front door and go grocery shopping. I am here to help you get to where you want to go. So if that means for the grocery shopper that she gets out the door, she gets to the market, she walks down one aisle, that's one step closer to her doing the entire market, the entire mall, the entire whatever she wants to do eventually, right? So as long as they are taking baby steps, they're on their way for their journey. So I guess what I would say is take a baby step. Just go in the direction you want to go to. If you can't even get out the front door, put your clothes on and act like you're gonna. And tomorrow, put one step out the door. And then the next day, get in the car. And even if you don't drive anywhere, and honestly, that's what I have to do sometimes for working out. Just put your clothes on, Arolyn. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to go for that walk.
No, absolutely. It's like if you're overwhelmed by a process, just do one thing that moves toward that goal. I love that. That's great. Because then anything is really possible. You know, if you break it down small enough, you know, you can move in the direction that you want to move. you know, and the statistic or so something that I say to my clients a lot is it only takes 1%. If you did 1% every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that can happen. So just 1%, just one.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I say
Yeah.
reach for the stars and you'll at least land on the moon.
Yeah. Right. Like just
right.
like, yeah. Okay. So I always end all my interviews this way, Arolyn. So here we go. You ready?
Okay.
If you could only choose one skill to empower your clients with, what would it be and why?
One skill, dream big.
Mm.
Dream big. And why? Because there's so many opportunities out there. And, you know, I'm not strong in math. And if you had asked me to do anything mathematical, I would suck at it. I think it was, who said it? Was it C.S. Lewis might be the one who said it? I'm not sure. I'm terrible at quoting people, but I remember what they say. But if you tried to judge a fish for climbing a tree, he would always fail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But he belongs in school.
Okay.
But you know, I mean, if we're comparing ourselves to other people that maybe we admire that have amazing talents and skills, just because we don't have that same skill or talent doesn't mean we're not talented or skilled. You know, I'm not good at math. I laugh and say my left brain is atrophied. But I'm very creative. I really get people. I really understand how people's brains work. I get, you know, how to maneuver things so that the person can become who they want to become. But don't ask me to do my taxes. I've got an accountant for that.
Hey, that is a big part of life, Arolyn, is knowing when and what you're good. I mean, what you're good at and when you can give it to someone else who's better. Like that's, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. John Maxwell says
really
if they
smart.
can do it 80% as good as you, only 80% as good as you. Even if you're better than them, then give it to somebody else to do. That's what John Maxwell says. And look how successful he is. He's got like 25 best-selling books.
Hey, speaking of books.
Oh, yeah.
You have a book coming.
Hopefully next year.
You want to give us a little like sneak peek, just a little snippet of what that is?
Okay. Well, it's kind of self-help using the techniques that I use. I probably refer to the rock technique in there, because I want my techniques to be available to anyone. And I know sometimes my price range prohibits some people from seeing me. So I figured put it in a book and people can read it and apply it, and other therapists can learn it and integrate it. And it's raw, it's real, it's vulnerable. I share a little bit about myself. I am candid about, you know, some experiences I've had with clients without, you know, giving too much client information. I share a lot of my techniques. And so I called it Naked Therapy because we're raw.
Amazing. It's amazing. Well, we're going to have to just keep, you're going to have to keep me posted on when that comes out. Because that's going to be an amazing share. Okay, Arolyn, if someone wanted to get in touch with you or find out more about you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, check out my website. That's the easy one. There's also free videos on my website on anxiety. There's even a hypnotherapy recording on God's love. There's a lot of free resources there. And that's VA treatment, THEA treatment.com. And they can just click on a button there and call me if they want to call me from there. I give a free 15-minute phone consultation. I'm doing virtually anyone in California. And with hypnotherapy, I'm actually able to work with anyone in the world, as long as we're not doing therapy. So
awesome. That's awesome. I'll make sure to put that in the description below. So
cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Arolyn, for your time and your energy today. I loved it. Hey, thanks for watching. If you're interested in finding out more about Arolyn, her information is in the description below. I've also provided a link to my website where I provide additional insights and impressions of this interview. If you got any value from this interview, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Doing so helps to get this information to others just like you. If there's a topic or a program that you want to know more about, please leave it in the comments below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.